Hey guys, in this video I'm going to show you my process for lighting a cinematic shot, so we go from this to this. Let's get to it. Alright, so before we dive into the shot, I want to show you how I set up my levels for cinematics, because that's a pretty key part in my workflow to make things really simple. So I've got a level open here and I'm just going to have a little hover around, and you can see that there are lights everywhere. Well, I say everywhere, they're in the roof mostly and on the walls at either side here. So the way this is set up, and this ties very closely with the video I made about sublevels, which you can see here. Basically it's all split out into two parts. You got cine and then you got set. So cine is just for cinematics, so that's all the stuff that is animated and moving, and everything under set is all baked down. So if I go into here, you'll be able to see that if I turn this off, like in the previous video, all my lighting just goes and disappears and I'm left with just the baked light in there. So it's kind of split into two. So in the actual environment creation, I have all this lighting set up here and all of these lights are static. So that's just a key thing I wanted to show you, where although I've got bespoke lighting per shot, a lot of it is shared, mainly the environment stuff. So on a per shot basis, I'm going to show you what we're about to set up. If I go into the shot here, which is just a simple rack focus to a droid, like that, what we're going to set up is this bespoke lighting level, which we can turn on and off. They work a bit like layers, except you can lock them as well, which is super handy. So if I have this unlocked now, so I can select my stormtrooper and stuff. But say I'm lighting a shot and I don't want to accidentally move something I shouldn't and have it set a keyframe, I'm just going to hit lock on that, and now I can't select anything. It doesn't quite work with the sequencer, but I can always just hit lock there and it'll be fine. Anyway, coming out of that, that's what we're going to set up. And what we're also going to set up is another little cool feature, where if you look at the visibility in the levels window here, you can see that I've got one almost per shot. So what I can do, if I switch over to shot 20 here, you can see that all the visibility settings have changed. That's due to this level visibility track in the sequencer. And we're going to set that up as well, and I'm going to show you what to do. Here's the shot here, you can see it's not been lit, and it's a very simple shot. The first thing we need to do is set up a sublevel for this shot. So what we're going to do in the levels window is click on the levels drop down, then click on create new, empty level, and we're going to make a new level called lighting _ 990. 990 just being the name of this particular shot. And then what we'll do is we're just going to organize that a bit and make sure that is set to be always loaded, and then we're ready to go. Now, exposure settings. I'm going to go to edit, project settings, type exposure, and then make sure that auto exposure is disabled. Then go into camera settings, and then what we need to do is scroll down to exposure. I like to just use auto exposure basic, and then set the minimum and maximum brightness to the value that you desire. In my case, I'm just going to set them both to 2.5 just as a simple starting point. And then what we can do is mess about with the exposure compensation. This is what we can use to actually drive the global exposure. We can even do this in the sequencer, so we can do it on a per shot basis. So back into the sequencer, under our camera, under the camera component, add track, post process settings, lens exposure, exposure compensation, and we can actually keyframe that value now. So for the sake of this, I'm going to set it to -1 because I want the background to be darker than the foreground, but I can always bring that up there to kind of bring it into something like that. So now we can actually dive in and start lighting. So if I go into lighting 990, you can see now it's an empty level. So what we'll do is start bringing stuff in there. So I'm going to take a look at how we're actually going to light this before I actually do it. So I'll turn the exposure back up, and let's take a look at the light sources that are within our scene. Okay, so taking a look at the shot, we've obviously got the obvious key light here, which is like a light that's going to be holding. So that's going to have a point light coming out of it. In the background of the set, you can see we've got some wall paneling here that's glowing, and we also have some roof lighting there. There's a little hint of it here. So what we're probably going to have is some lighting, basically some lighting coming in from all directions. So we've got a lot of freedom here to do what we want. So we're probably just going to add a point light here, and then just bring in something just to bring the edges down. I'm going to just quickly set the exposure to be what it was before, so that it's correct to what I want. In this, I want the background darker and I want the foreground brighter. So first thing we'll do is bring in the point light, so which is going to be our key light for this orb. So I'm going to bring in a point light here, and then I'm going to scroll up, go to movable, set the mobility to movable, because all my lighting is dynamic for shots like this. And then I'm going to just position it where our orb is here. There's always some fancy things you can do. such as attaching it to the character, but for now we're just going to go with something static and something nice. So we're going to get that in there, and we'll worry about the color in a bit. Right now I'm just worried about just getting things in place. So I'm going to have that initial one there. I'm also, you can see here I'm misclicking, so I'm actually going to lock my Tutsune layer. That means I won't accidentally click things. I'm only going to touch the lighting, which is great. Next thing I'm going to do is bring in a spotlight. And I'm just going to bring that over there, so that's movable. And I'm going to call this LT Spot 1. And I should probably rename the spotlight, the point light, so I'm going to call it LT Bulb Key. And then I'm going to bring that there. So we're just going to set up a very basic 3-point lighting setup. It's nothing too fancy, and it's actually quite straightforward to do. Let's do something like that. Just going to bring that up a bit just to kind of, anyway, there is some weirdness going on that I'm not going to really worry about. So I'm going to position that there so that we get a nice, we're basically looking for a nice highlight on the face. Something like there. And then we can either do another one there, kind of like that from the other side, or we can go down from the top. Again, this is about as basic as you can get. The idea here is that you're really going to try and get some nice highlights on the top of the head here. It's just gonna, the idea is just to make the character stand out from whatever is behind him. So something like that. And even now, if I disable the key light, it's not looking too bad. So right now we've got 2 rim lights as well. So this is okay, but I want to push it a little bit further. Let's try and get a rim down the arms here, maybe add some details to the hand, and yeah, let's see where we end up. So we're going to get a little bit more complicated, but it's really simple because of how we set up our lighting setup. So let's have a look here. Again, we're not doing anything too complicated. We're just going to place all this down and just get it looking nice. And then we'll worry about the colors and things. So again, we just kind of just add something just to highlight the edges a bit. So something like that. And bring that down. It doesn't have to be intense, just something quite subtle. Subtle is good. And I might, just to stylize it a bit, I'll add another one on the other side just to kind of highlight the right hand side edge. Set the inner cone angle to maybe 5. And just have it point at what we want it to point at. Okay. Now I've not actually done anything with our nice little bulb key light yet. So I'm gonna select all these, I'm gonna turn them all off. And we're just gonna focus on our little bulb. You can totally just focus on the bulb and really nail that first if you want to. It's totally up to you. And I'm going to mess with the color temperature a bit. I'm just going to bring it down, make it slightly warmer, maybe something like that. And you can see right now, if I set it too high, it starts to blow out the image. So I want to hit maybe 1 or 1.5. Let's just see how far I can push it. We'll go with 1.5 for now. I also want the bulb size to be roughly the same as what is emitting the actual light, and this will soften up some of those shadows. So you see here it's a really harsh shadow. Let's increase it, increase the bulb size, and we'll make it roughly the same size as what we're working with. So it'll be about, we'll make it a little bit bigger just to make it softer. So now if I move this around, you can see the shadows are now much softer, which is what we want. It's nice, and it's just nice. Yeah, it's a nice image. Again, if we set this too high, it'll blow out. So I think 2 is probably as far as we'll go, but I might just bring it down slightly. Okay, now we're going to introduce the spotlights. So we're going to go for each spotlight one by one. Turn on effects world again. And we're going to mess with the temperature. So if the face is going to be quite warm, then we probably want the edges to be a bit cooler, just to add a bit of contrast. So what we'll do is just bring the temperature up to about, let's say 9500. And same again, we're just going to bring it down so that we don't get any of this blowout. Something like that, just enough to highlight an edge. So we can even see the before and after as well. So before we had that, after that, already looking great. We're just going to continue that. So we want to follow the edge and really highlight the edge of the character. So we've got that spotlight we added before on top. Again, just kind of highlighting all of this good stuff. So we're going to bring that down, and we'll set the temperature to match. It's as if that light is coming from all the light fixtures around them. And we can even bring it up. We can even bring it up a bit higher, as if it's like under a spotlight or something. So we've got a nice warmth from the light, and then going into light fixtures, and then it gets nice and contrasty below. And on this, you see we're getting quite a harsh shadow. I'm going to increase the source radius on this as well. Just to reduce the harshness of those shadows a bit. I'm going to do the same on the back one. Something like that. And then round to the rim on screen left, on the right side of his face. Might shift it slightly. Basically, I'm just curious to see how it looks, is all. Just a little bit of a highlight. And then use temperature again. $5,500. And we can see the effect that is having there. Then the last one, which is a bit of a fill light on his face. Effects world there, and then we can kind of see what this is doing. So if I turn that off and then turn it on again, any of these blacks down here, it'll just kind of fill those in a little bit and just make the image a bit more balanced. And the other thing I want as well is to get a nice little rim light down the back of his hand here. So what I'll do is I'm going to grab one of our spotlights, duplicate it, move it around. Again, just to get a nice edge on, I'll turn it way up so I can see what I'm doing a bit clearer. So we're just doing this just to get a nice edge. then what we'll do is bring the radius down. I like to keep the radius a bit lower, just in case there's multiple characters in the shot or multiple subjects, so just makes life a bit easier. And then I'm going to bring that up there, and you can see the difference that makes on the hand, so we can start to see the detail in the individual fingers by just seeing the edge on them there. And that's it in a nutshell. Another thing that's really handy to watch out for is you can kind of see the eye glint there. So if I go into the camera and then let's just go to here and then I zoom way in, this eye glint is what brings a character to life without fail. So if I pitch up slightly, yaw slightly, zoom right in, pitch up. So this here, if you want someone to feel alive, that's how you do it. This little tiny little eye glint. So another little thing we can do is just add in a little bit of, there's a bit there, but I'd like to see a little bit more light interaction on his hands. Although it's probably not that realistic. I'm gonna bring in a new spotlight. So this is an example of faking it. So what we can do is place a spotlight above it, and then what this will do is kind of cast down slightly here. You see it's just going to get that bit of hand interaction. Maybe set that to 1, and then bring the color temperature down to match what's coming from the light, and it just kind of adds a little bit there. Again, we're getting into the realms of overlighting stuff and making it too much, but you know, if you're happy with it and it gets across what you want to say. Alright, maybe this bulb is, I don't know, a Star Wars Holy Grail or something, who knows. So we'll kind of go in there. Okay, something like that will do. Might actually bring it down a bit, maybe 0.5 or 0.25 even, and then bring the radius way down. Just a little something, it's just to add in those little details and really let the details show through. I think what I'm gonna do is let it update. I'm gonna bring this down, and I'm gonna bring the outer cone radius down to about there. Yeah, that looks okay. Yeah, and that's it. That's so, in a nutshell, that's how I light a character. So that's pretty much it. It's quite a simple shot. There's not a huge amount to it, but the basics of my workflow are there. I hope you guys found it useful, and if you'd like to see more, please check out my channel. There'll be more stuff on there coming up soon.